Hello there, boxing fans around the world. Thank you for joining me once again here on Talkin Fight for another episode of Boxing News Today. And let's get cracking with the heavyweight division. Why? Because I went down a rabbit hole with respect to Deontay Wilder, wondering if he's ever going to be able to fight again, quite frankly. You know, his talks with Andy Ruiz and his camp have fallen by the wayside, which leaves him wondering whether or not he'll be fighting AJ in Saudi Arabia, and that is not confirmed either. But one of the persons who used to be co-managed, co-promoted by Eddie Hearn, a fellow by Tony Bellew, has chimed in on the subject and believes instead that Eddie Hearn and company are heading towards a fight against Tyson Fury for Anthony Joshua. Tony Bellew said, "I'm hearing rumors that talks between AJ and Wilder's camps have stopped at the minute, and AJ's camp are looking more towards Fury and AJ again instead of AJ and Wilder. The talk is of another fight going to Africa, which would be absolutely incredible. Rumble in the jungle all over again in Zaire or something along those lines." As we all know, Tyson Fury returns to the ring against ex-UFC champ Francis Ngannou. Tyson Fury's 35, Ngannou's 36. It's a crossover clash. Doesn't really much to us boxing fans, with the exception of Francis Ngannou being a pretty big boy, and Tyson Fury will have his hands full, so it will be an interesting fight. So after talks of unification against Alexander Usyk fell apart, who, by the way, is 36 years old, Joshua, in the meantime, knocked out Robert Helenius, who's 39 years old, by the way, and called out Wilder afterwards. But it doesn't look like Wilder and AJ are going to happen. And in fact, it's been discussed that AJ, in fact, might now be looking at a fight between either Robert Helenius or Dillian Whyte, and that remains to be seen or confirmed. But we'll see, as fight fans always do, what will happen next, according to the guys who make those kinds of decisions. Anyway, with respect to those decisions, Eddie Hearn chimed in on the weekend and said talks are ongoing. We're still in the same position of a January fight. If we don't conclude that fight, and they're talking about moving it to February, March, we, as in he and AJ, will probably fight in December. I don't mean AJ and Hearn fighting, but the camp, let's say, the team representing AJ will probably fight in December. And if that's the case, it won't be Wilder. Wilder's talking about, he continues, fighting in October, but it's September now. AJ will wait to fight Wilder in January. He's training now. He wants to fight in December. If they turned around and said, let's do Wilder in December, he'd do it. But everybody's talking like it's happening. But but until it's happening, it ain't on, says Hearn. Until it's on, we'll keep our options open for December. Ideally, we'd like to go straight into the Wilder fight. So that's basically up to the minute report with respect to AJ and Wilder, which doesn't look like it's going to happen. And are we going to see AJ versus another fighter, whether it be Helenius, whether it be Dillian Whyte? Remains to be seen, but again, doesn't really matter. What is interesting is to see what else is happening in the heavyweight scene. Let's take a look at Zhao Zhang, who knocked out Joe Joyce. Big Bang, he says, stated that he believed Luis Pavon's decision to rule the low shot with respect to Chris Eubank Jr. Was the correct one, and that, Dubois, did indeed down his tools in the 9th round and needs to work on his heart, he said. He said, I watched the fight and the punch was a little below, was a little bit low. It landed below Usyk's navel. After the fight resumed, Dubois did not use his physical advantages, and Usyk was able to regain his rhythm. Dubois basically quit, says Zhang. I think Dubois needs to work on his heart. You might be interested to know similar accusations were thrown at Dubois after a stoppage loss to Joyce back in 2020 when, Like in his only other top-level contest against Usyk, he took a knee and failed to beat the referee's count. The much-anticipated rematch between Zhang and Joyce is now less than 3 weeks away, a must-win fight for Joyce if he's to have any aspirations of becoming world heavyweight champion. The WBO interim belt, which Zhang pried from him first time round, will be on the line once more, meaning the victor could potentially get their own shot at unified champ against Usyk some point next year. That remains to be seen. But in other heavyweight news, again continuing our eye on the subject of heavyweights and how varied these opponents are. Let's have a look here. U.S. Olympic silver medalist Richard Torrez Jr., who we've talked about often on Talkin Fight, is set to continue his busy year with his third appearance in 2023. He'll be facing Don Haynesworth in a 6-round heavyweight bout. Torres has been on a hot streak, having scored first-round stoppages in previous 2 fights against James Bryant and Willie Jr. And he'll be looking to maintain his momentum in this upcoming bout. Also, Guido Vianello, the 2016 Italian Olympian, will also be in action, taking on Florida veteran Curtis Harper in an 8-round heavyweight matchup that same night. So there's some interesting news elsewhere if you look beyond the British headlines with respect to the heavyweight division. As I had erroneously mentioned earlier, Chris Eubank remains in the news. In particular, who will he fight next? Conor Benn, I certainly hope not. Kell Brook, I really doubt it. But one fight that I do think would be interesting would be the Kazakh fighter Janibek Alimkhanuly. He's 14-0. He's undefeated. He's got 9 knockouts. He's the current WBO middleweight champ. He won the interim title after knocking out Danny Dignam with a vicious uppercut near the end of the second round. Then WBO champion Demetrius Andrade was given 30 days to negotiate a fight and couldn't do it with the Kazakh. The American decided to vacate, which promoted the Kazakh fighter to the full WBO title that same day. The southpaw middleweight has already shown he possesses the knockout power, and once he senses the end is near, he's impressive at closing out fights, as he did earlier this year against Stephen Butler. One of the 3 options therefore listed, as I said, Conor Benn, Kell Brook, or Alimkhanuly, probably the least likely due to A, his limited exposure thus far, and how dangerous he is. He will, however, face Vincenzo Gualtieri in the unification bout, and that's going to take place on the 14th of October, a Saturday night, in a month's time. Let's move across the pond, or 2 ponds, depending how you look at it, to Japan. Teiken Promotions were putting on a fight on the same night as Eubank and Smith went toe-to-toe. Former IBF 130-pound champ Kenichi Agawa, 28-2-1, by the way, won no contest, 19 knockouts, proved too powerful and aggressive for OPBF number 15 ranked Filipino Marvin Escudero. He's 17-3-1, won no contest, 11 knockouts, winning a nearly shutout decision. And that was over 10 rounds, as I said a couple of days ago in Tokyo, Japan. Agawa acquired the vacant IBF belt by out-exhausting Nzinga Furi at Madison Square Garden back in 2011, but lost it to Joe Gordina in a single right shot in Cardiff, Wales in June of the previous year. In his second comeback bout, Agawa, a sturdy and muscular puncher, kept stalking the elusive Dodger, whose object was just to survive rather than to be victorious. Kenichi sometimes almost caught the negative Filipino, but he displayed tricky defensive skills to avert Agawa's lethal shots until the end. Another fight that same night, put on by Teiken Promotions, Japanese welterweight champ Shoki Sakai, 28-17-3, 15 knockouts, retained his national belt as he kept stalking less aggressive footworker Hiroya Nagaya all the way, and won a nearly lopsided decision over 10 unanimous and monotonous rounds, it says here in the report. Monotonous rounds. Wow. Sakai, who had stayed long under Nacho Benstein, Mexico, returned to his native place 3 years ago and then acquired the national title this past April. In his initial defense, Sakai patiently kept chasing the footworker and dominated almost all rounds with ease, it concludes. And there you have it, boxing fans. Thanks once again for joining me. Appreciate it very much. Thanks very much for joining me, Carl. I'm not anti-English at all. I'm just speaking the truth about Eddie Hearn. But let's have a more than happy to have you join us anytime. And any of those fight fans out there listening, if you want to join us, let us know. And does Joyce have to win to save his career? Absolutely, as do a few other heavyweights. I think we might have seen the last of Wilder, as I've said many times before. I think he's been injured and his skull is soft. I think that's according to John Fury, by the way, not me. Anyway, there are some Americans up and coming, Torrez being one of them, but Anderson being next in line, I think, in terms of champions. Let's have a look and see what happens, as the North American market is not really keeping tabs of the English market. The English market is not keeping tabs of the American market either. So we'll see what happens. But there are other heavyweights in other countries making strides, among them Zhilai Zhang. So anyway, we'll talk to you later. Thanks very much for joining me. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We'll see you later on at 4 p.m. when I join Mike Orr for his show, Knuckle Up. Bye-bye.